Hi, everyone, and welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in digital infrastructure. And we're here today on day one of ITW.
Yay.
Yay! Yeah, it's good to be back. Great to have you as our very first guest today. This is Lisa Marie Maxon, who's the CEO of 10X People. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good morning.
Yeah.
It's off to a great start here.
It is, yeah. I mean, with the opening reception last night, you could sort of feel the energy here. A lot of people have come out
Yes.
to share their stories, but we want to hear your story first. So
All right.
tell us a little bit about the progress that's been made at 10X People this year.
Wow, this year has been really exciting. As you know, we do number inventory, porting, number intelligence, number ordering, and we have a whole ecosystem. So what we're really excited about this year is just adding to that ecosystem, making it simpler. With our partner Turning Point, we've added AI integration to smooth the onboarding of our customers' customers to bring them revenue more quickly. And then up in Canada, the regulators have said you now must assign numbers differently in thousands blocks. So the carriers up there, this is a huge change for them. They have to do their inventory different, their porting different. They need more number intelligence. So we've partnered with the Canadian Number Authority, ComSolve, and created a new suite of products called InSuite that is to address that gap in the Canadian market and help them be successful to meet the October deadline.
Oh, October deadline. Wow, there's
Yes.
a lot to be done before then. That's only 6 months away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot going on at 10X People.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit. I know that portal integration is also part of this conversation. Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit about that?
So we know today that we have a lot of carriers that provide networks for telecommunication services and numbers to their customers. And these customers get these numbers from different carriers. They need to be able to manage those numbers, know who they're assigned to, report on them. And so now we're helping our customers be successful with their number management, which is really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Different group of people, same problems that we can address. So.
Okay. And so, we were chatting a little bit before. It's hard to believe a whole year has gone by since we were chatting here last year. And I know you had a bit of a lofty goal. Can you tell us the progress you made against that goal this year?
Yeah. So last year we managed and did transactions 500,000, $500 million.
500 million.
500
Yes,
million.
that's
I'm
even bigger.
So hard with numbers. So
Yeah.
This year we're going for $1 billion.
Oh, wow.
And we're on track for that already this year. It's pretty exciting to know that you're helping your customers and you're doing what they need to be successful.
Yeah. It sounds like everything is just running on, full cylinders right now. What does
Yes.
the future look like for not just for 10X People, but I know it's sort of a big topic, but for the industry overall, what does it look like?
Yeah, 10X People, of course, like everyone, we're looking at AI integration, AI to speed our, time to market, but we're also helping younger people. We have great interns, and we've managed to hire 3 of those interns within the last year after they've completed their college degree. And it just brings a new energy and new excitement. And with our aging population of workers, they have a lot of opportunity in their careers. And if we can help them make that next step, it's super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always so great to hear that. And that young generation sort of just giving them those opportunities and knowing that they're just so eager to learn and have there's sort of a blank canvas and our industry needs it.
Oh, we totally need that infusion of fresh blood, if you will, to
100%.
make the jump, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Well, that's all we have today. I mean, the time always goes so quickly, and
Yes.
hopefully we'll be chatting with you a lot over the course of the week. Do you have a lot planned for the week? I'm sure you do.
Yes, I have a lot of meetings, but we're going to go to the Greener Data reception.
Fantastic. Yes, we look
that's
forward to
gonna be-
seeing you there.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
going to be
Tomorrow
great.
night.
So,
Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much for your time, and we
Absolutely.
look forward to chatting with you more. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in today to JSA TV Live, coming to you from the floor of ITW 2025. Until next time. Hi, everyone, and welcome to JSA TV, where we're coming to you live from the floor of ITW 2025. And we're talking to business leaders across our industry about the latest trends, stories, and innovations impacting digital infrastructure. And I'm very pleased to be joined today by Martin Panunzio, who is the submarine project manager for Gold Data USA. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
so great to have you joining us. I'd love to just sort of jump right in here and hear a little bit from you about we're going to talk a little bit about Latin America specifically today, of course, and just some of the challenges that may be happening in that market as people are trying to deploy internet connectivity.
Well, Latin America is a whole continent which is not very well connected. And it's a very huge continent with many challenges. And we are trying to overcome those challenges by creating infrastructure, not only terrestrial, but only now submarine, but the submarine cable called MANTA.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I understand that you've made some progress on the Manta
Yes.
cable.
We just signed a CIF contract in force, which means that the cable is now building because we signed not only within our partners, but also with the constructor, which is Subcom, and now they are running the plan of work. So we are very proud to announce that infrastructure that will be unique in the Central America region.
Yeah. What so I imagine it would have, it sounds like it's a much needed development in the region. What impact will it have on local businesses and economy?
Well, especially the impact with Manta in particular will be development and be more reliable. All the connectivity within Mexico, because Manta will connect 2 points of Mexico and 2 points in the United States. So that give a lot of redundancy in case one cable is failed. So, and also we are building very reliable infrastructure in Mexico. And the first time that the cable submarine cable land in Veracruz. There's no cable in Veracruz. So this is a very innovative landing.
Yeah, and I feel like that's maybe a good segue to, talking a little bit about some other things other than the Manta submarine cable. What are
Yes.
some other initiatives that you may be working on that are going
Well, we interconnect a lot of points, especially in the frontier with the U.S., and we are keeping growing in Mexico because, and of course, in other regions like Venezuela, Colombia, Dominican Republic, but in Mexico in particular, we are uh, covering all the demand that we foresee because of the 70 data centers that we're building in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
it's
significant.
amazing.
That
It's
is, yeah.
amazing. So we are very, very we commit to build infrastructure in the
Right.
region.
Connectivity and data
Yes.
centers and all of everything.
And cloud services,
Oh,
and
okay.
also give a low latency to get markets in the US.
Okay.
That's why we get into a new point of landing in the US,
Right.
like San Blas, which is at the top of the Florida state, but in the Gulf of America.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think I would imagine that it comes at such a great time when the workloads are so much larger, and with everything happening with hyperscale and AI, that really
Yes,
sets you up to be able to support that.
Correct. Yeah. We will cover all the demand for the hyperscalers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's, I think that, do you have, I'm sure we're only on day one here of ITW. It's a big week. Do you have a lot in
Yes.
store for the remainder of the
Okay.
week? Yeah.
Yes, I have a lot of meetings with companies who build landing stations. So we have a lot of work to do in
Yes.
these coming 2 or 3 years. Yeah,
Yes, it sounds like it. You have
yeah,
a
yeah,
full schedule. Well,
yeah. Of
we look
course.
forward to talking to you again, over the course of the year, and again
Sure.
here again
Yeah.
next year. We'll see. I'm
Of
sure that
course.
a lot will have
Absolutely.
happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you so much for joining us. We
Okay.
really appreciate your time
Thank you
today.
very much.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
thank you to our viewers for tuning in to JSA TV Live here at ITW 2025. Until next time. Hi, everyone, and welcome to JSA TV, where we continue to come to you live today from ITW 2025. I'm Barb Mitchell, and I'm joined today by Pooja Atale, who's the Global AI Lead for Microsoft. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here, Michelle.
Yeah.
I am, like you mentioned,
Yes.
I am the Global Telco Lead for AI. I work very closely with the strategic global telcos, helping them design AI powered solutions and help them build the AI Cloud Center of Excellence, AI practices, which really helps the telcos do network transformation, accelerate the overall efficiency, and definitely the most important, unlock new revenue streams.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. It's a real pleasure to have you here, and we're
Nice.
excited to dive into some of these topics today. And I thought we'd start big picture and just talk about, just this small topic around what's Microsoft's vision, right? If you could talk about that in terms of your role and the work that you're doing at Microsoft.
Sure. So, like you might have heard, right, our vision is to empower every person and every organization on earth, right, on this planet. We really want to make sure that we enhance the AI potential and we enhance the human potential by using AI. That's what our focus is, right? We just don't want to build products. We really want to create those experiences when we're
Yes.
talking about AI. We want to make sure that we fundamentally work towards changing how humans interact with technology and with each other. Right? So that's what we see at Microsoft. We continuously foster learning and growth. That's our key when we talk about our vision, whether it's AI related.
Yeah, it's you're doing such amazing work, of course, at Microsoft, and it's, very clear to see, but you're also, really pioneers and leaders in the work being done around generative AI and AI. You know, First of all, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your framework around this and, just explain to us what that looks like.
That's a great question, Michelle, because if you see when we talk about generative AI, what our vision and what the day to day activities look like, I'd like to take a step back, right? And I'd like to spend some time. If you remember 2 years back, right, when we launched Gen AI demos, right, we had customers visiting us in our EBCs in Redmond, where they were asking us, they were curious, right? And they said, like, this is great. This is cute technology, is what they used to call it, right? They called the technology cute. And they were like, do you really think this is going to actually help me change and reshape my business processes? But I'm sure the AI, the demos you're doing and the technology you have will help me build holiday cards, right? So that. Now, fast forward a few months, we actually see that the customers came back to us with a little concern, saying that is AI going to replace them? Now, they've actually come back with, if not hundreds, like thousands of use cases, right? Where they've spent millions and millions of dollars
Yeah.
with the advisory firms to identify what could be the AI use cases which can bring in efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Now, the problem and the challenge over there is that we see these many use cases. They need Microsoft guidance to see how they can select, basically separate the hype versus the impact, right? Because you have all these use cases where the advisory firms are saying that you can actually bring in efficiency, you can bring in productivity, but are these use cases the one which are really, how do you prioritize them, which are the ones which you really want to focus on, right? So that's where we actually have built a framework which has four foundational pillars. The first one is reinventing, and it's basically reinventing and enriching the employee experience, because we feel at Microsoft employees are the biggest asset, right? And we want to make sure that we build and invest into employees. So we actually, at Microsoft, we drink our own champagne, right? And I believe in that. So we actually deployed around 65,000 Copilot licenses within Microsoft, and we could have actually done that and invested this in GPU sales. But then we took a strategic decision saying that we want to invest in Copilot licenses because it did give us a payoff. We have 9% of revenue increase, you see, per person after deploying AI Copilot.
Yeah.
And we've got around 23% of higher closer deals, right, which we are doing. So this efficiency is really, I would say, helping in terms of the overall enriching employee experience. That's the first pillar. Start with employees. Second, the most important thing for every organization is customer experience. So we've actually helped AI using AI, we actually help enrich customer experience, right? Building on customer engagement platforms. And we've done that within Microsoft. We use Copilot for triaging information. The third most important pillar, which we think, is reshaping business processes. Because most of the organizations have around 50-year-old traditional processes which they want to see how they can manage, right? And what we've done at Microsoft, we formed a small team which is led by our chief AI transformation officer who reviews each and every process, traditional process, to see how we can actually build an AI first approach, right? So that's basically, I would say, reshaping of the business processes. And the fourth pillar, which is very important, is about innovation, bend the curve of innovation, where we're trying to see how innovation using AI products, we can drive more productivity, we can drive more enhancement to the overall, I would say, the technology advancements which we are doing, right? So within internally, we use GitHub Copilot, right? And we've actually developed code which is way faster than what we used to do the traditional way. So we have like around, I would say, 3 times more products launched in the last 3 months, what we have not done in a year. So with these four foundational pillars, we actually try to combine human potential with AI and agents to unlock productivity and goals.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating to hear, and amazing that you're you're working so hard internally to get this right. And I mean, even committing to a chief AI transformation officer, I love that.
Yeah.
And it allows you, I think, to really get ahead of any obstacles that your customers or users may experience, right? So can you talk a little bit about that? What some of those challenges that those folks may be facing would
No,
be?
that's definitely an important question. Now, I'd like to focus because right now we are at ITW and what challenges the telcos are facing
Yeah.
currently. If you see, the telcos are, when we did a TM forum, survey, they found out that the biggest challenge which the telcos had was about data management, right? So AI is all about data. If you don't have good data, then AI transformation becomes a challenge. So what are the challenges? Like, having data silos, poor quality data, right? And data, unstructured data, security and policy challenges. So what we are doing is we are collaborating with the TM forum to build a modern data architecture, and our platform for the modern data architecture is Microsoft Fabric. In the era of AI, we use Microsoft Fabric as a platform which really unifies all these AI tools and services, right, to bring in the right data protection, the right data security, breaking down data silos, right, which is definitely causing one of the biggest challenge, and definitely structuring and getting good quality data. So that's how we are building and helping our telcos using Microsoft Fabric and building that industry specific, data architecture, reference architecture to take overcome challenges in data management.
And I imagine, I mean, there's been just so much conversation about the change that that AI and generative AI are bringing. So, what are you seeing in terms of this? Again, you're talking about the telcos, how they're seeing AI impact operational efficiencies, and what are some of the impacts that you're seeing right away?
Telcos are actually going through a pivotal change. I'm seeing telcos moving from curiosity to commitment when it comes to collaboration with AI and using AI transformation. So they're seeing two prong approach. One is telcos internally being a customer zero, right, where telcos are actually trying to use AI internally. First, most importantly, it's on network optimization. So telcos are actually working in using AI to see how they can detect potential each issues within the network using AI tools and technology. They're really trying to see how they can optimize the overall network, dynamic traffic management. That's another key which we are seeing within the telcos. We're seeing how telcos are detecting, how I would say anomaly detection, right? That's another big thing which telcos are using AI for, so that they can fix the issues and have higher level of customer satisfaction and loyalty, because customer loyalty and retention is the key. Similarly, along with network optimization, I see telcos also utilizing it for customer engagement platforms, right? To see how they can serve the customers better and they can have a reduced cost to serve. So that's another area where I'm seeing telcos. And then, you might have heard about network APIs. After Kamara, we've got these standardized network APIs where telcos are using APIs like the SIM swap API, right? For in terms of fraud detection, right? Helping the banks with it. Then GPU as a service, monetizing their data centers. So there's lots and lots of potential where telcos can utilize AI internally and also for their end customers to generate revenue.
And I mean, it just keeps growing and expanding, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It does.
It's been such a pleasure to speak with you. I feel like I mean, we could spend
Hours on
yeah,
this,
talking
yes.
about this. And I know that you have a few different opportunities to be talking about this during the week here at ITW. It's going to be a busy week and a lot for you to tell on behalf of the work that you're doing at Microsoft and the vision of your whole team. So thank you for
And
taking
thank
the
you so
time.
much. Thank you to the audience. And thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited to be at ITW and look forward to collaborating with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in today to JSA TV, coming to you live from ITW 2025. Until next time. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of ITW 2025. And we're talking to leaders across the digital infrastructure industry. You're talking to us about innovations and developments in this important industry. And I'm joined today by Matt Monaco, who's the Senior Vice President, Asset Management for Powerhouse Data Centers, and Vardhan Chaudhry, who is also Senior Vice President for Asset Management at Powerhouse Data Centers. So at Powerhouse, you're doing a lot of great things. I know that you've been expanding rapidly recently. I think probably have a lot of updates for us. I know that we've chatted with you not probably that long ago, Matt, but would you mind starting and just telling us a little bit about what you've been up to?
Yeah, happy to. We're continuing to see a great trend in the market right now where our strategy of focusing on immediate gratification on power within 24 to 36 months, large campuses in or proximate to tier one markets that are suitable for multiple use cases, whether it's cloud or AI training or AI inference. And the demand picture that's out there that multiple hyperscalers in recent earning releases have talked about a shortage of supply, even slowing down their growth. And our campuses are really very well positioned to support those needs.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we want to dig a little bit more. Maybe you can add a little bit onto that just in terms of how Powerhouse is really supporting this explosion around AI and hyperscale demand.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. It's really great to be here. So first I'll say I'm a relatively new joiner to the Powerhouse team, so I'm part of the growth that we're experiencing as a company, and I'm thrilled to be here. Just to sort of tag on to what Matt was saying, I think what we're seeing in the macro environment and across the country and the world is a lot of uncertainty, but one thing that does remain certain is that the demand side of data centers from the hyperscalers continues to be extremely strong. And that's really heartening for us as a real estate solution provider to the data center industry. We are providing exactly that, real estate solutions for our hyperscale tenants, and that continues to just drive a tremendous amount of growth for our company. And again, once again, as Matt said, it's all just driven by the demand from the hyperscalers.
Yeah, and that's not all. I think you're also growing in geographically, right, into new markets. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We are very quick at identifying sites in both primary but also secondary markets that have, as Matt said, immediate gratification for our customers on power, but also entitlements and really shovel-ready data center projects. So we have sites in Louisville, in Nevada and Reno specifically, in Dallas-Fort Worth, in Texas, and a number of other markets that, while are sort of considered tier two markets, what they do offer is low latency and immediate access to sort of expansion of data center capacity for tenants. And once again, we're seeing demand, and we're excited to deliver and execute on these projects in some of these tier two markets.
And do you want to talk about what's driving the growth? You started a little bit, but Matt, would you mind expanding on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really the continued growth of cloud. This is a business that was already growing quite well before AI came in. AI, I always think of as like gasoline on the fire of an already fast-growing cloud business.
Yeah.
And this is needed across all the geographies. I'll just add a bit to what Vardhan said as well. Our portfolio in total is over 6 gigawatts of powered entitled land capacity, covering 8 markets and growing. And we're continuing to find good alignment between where we're pursuing projects and where the hyperscalers want to be.
And one of the big topics, we can't not talk about this, I don't think, is when you're talking about such, fast plans for expansion, is some of the issues around grid constraints and power. And so maybe if you wouldn't mind starting and telling us a little bit about, your just procurement around power and how you're tackling that.
Sure. I mean, to put it bluntly, that's the game. Power continues to be the long pole in the tent and the constraining factor in data center development across the country and the world, frankly. And what we've been doing proactively in both our site selection and then ultimately in our execution on these sites across the country is partnering with utilities to establish, 100% plans and commitments for power delivery on certain ramp schedules that meet our clients' needs. And I just wanted to emphasize and underline that term partnership. We are working within the constraints that the grid operators and utility providers have. And in some cases, that requires creative problem solving on temporary power that leads to then permanent power. But ultimately, we are working hand in glove with our utility partners across the country to secure really commitments that are critical to then executing for these very large campuses that are in triple digit megawatts, if not gigawatts, in terms of capacity.
Any final words on that for us, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it's the partnerships with utilities are really critical, and a lot of it comes down to a rinse and repeat model too. Once we build a good relationship and a lot of trust with the utility partner, we're finding more projects, which means we're getting to market faster and bringing on more capacity in those same markets.
Well, that's all for us today. I think that, I appreciate you stopping by. It's such a busy week always here, isn't it, at ITW?
It is, that's for sure.
You've got, I'm sure, a jam-packed schedule, so we'll let you get to it. But I really appreciate you coming and talking to us here at JSA and to our viewers. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in again here to JSA TV Live, coming to you from the floor of ITW 2025. Until next time. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from day one at ITW 2025. And we're talking to leaders sharing with us innovation stories, news from across the digital infrastructure industry. And I'm very pleased to be joined by John Denemark, who's the SVP of Carrier Provisioning at TransUnion. Welcome. Yeah.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you. It's been a year, I think, since we last.
It's been a year, almost to the day.
Yeah, since we last chatted, and so for any of our viewers who may have missed our last conversation, can you just tell us a little bit about TransUnion and your role?
Sure. Well, why don't we start with that? So, again, John Denemark, Senior Vice President of Carrier Provisioning at TransUnion. Thank you again for having us here.
Of course.
Just to introduce TransUnion, I think everybody's heard of the name. We are a credit bureau, but we also have a very sizable communications business, which is where I fit in. TransUnion has about 13,000, I think, employees all over the world, operating out of 30 different countries. So we definitely have scale and global scale, actually, these days. From a carrier provisioning perspective, what we do is we focus on the communications market, primarily in the US and in North America. And we offer to our customers automation solutions for order management. And we focus primarily in a couple areas. One is in the network connectivity space, where we help our customers automate their network connectivity orders, and in the voice services space, where we help our customers automate portability and numbering. A couple areas where, they tend to be legacy spaces for our customers, with some legacy systems that don't talk to each other, manual processes, and we help to simplify all of that, automate all of that, in some cases outsource all of that, and provide a lot of bottom line benefit for our customers.
Yeah. I can see that would have a huge impact on a lot of your clients. And I mean, given that we're here at ITW International Telecoms Week, let's talk about the telco market and specifically how order management may be of help to this industry.
Sure. Well, there's a couple things to note. I mean, first of all, what we see in terms of order management is that we can impact three areas that every business cares about. We can impact revenue, we can impact cost, and customer experience. And the reason for that is because every order that we get to process on behalf of our customers represents a little sliver of revenue for our customers. And to the extent that our automation solutions can shorten the cycle time, that means we shorten the time to revenue for that particular order, and our customers get to revenue more quickly. So that's great, right?
Yeah, pretty good.
And then to the extent that our hosted solutions, because we deliver all of our solutions via our carrier provisioning cloud, so they're hosted in our environments. To the extent that we can replace some of those legacy standalone systems and automate our customers' internal operations in these areas, then we can really help them reduce cost and scale. And then to the extent that our solutions can simplify and automate our customers' interfaces with their customers, well, then we help to improve the customer experience as well. So overall, we can take out cycle time, we can take out cost, we can really kind of streamline operations to help with the customer experience and the bottom line impacts as well.
Yeah. Everyone wants this, right? I mean, efficiency, streamlining, impact on ROI, and
now we don't do it everywhere, but in those areas where we focus, we do it the best.
Yeah. And speaking of best, I mean, you're already, when we chatted last year, you were already doing so much. Talk a little bit about some of the advancements that have been made and continue to be made by your organization.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, we've been around for over 30 years at this point, and we spend a lot of money on our products and services to stay ahead of the curve. And what we're seeing in our areas is a couple things. On the network connectivity side, we continue to see increasing demand for our solutions because they're increasing demand for connectivity and connectivity ordering. There's a number of industry trends that are driving that. And what we're working on with our customers in those areas is standardization and automation of end to end. So, for example, in our world, there's this thing called ASR, Access Service Request, which is supposed to be a standardized way to order connectivity. But even in that space, that order covers only a fraction of the end-to-end process. And on the wireless side, for example, it only covers like 20%. And there are roughly 40,000 different error messages in the industry that we have to deal with. So very complicated, not standard, and not end-to-end. So we're changing that with our Universal Order Connect solution. And we're working very closely with our customers to integrate our customers and their partners, their connectivity providers, and really have a seamless flow across the board and speak the same language. That's super important because every customer does it differently, but we can map all that to a standard and speak the same language. That improves efficiency tremendously.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, I have to ask, because I feel like this is the topic of, I don't know, the day, the year, the week, everything, generative AI. I feel, right? Isn't everyone talking about this? So how is that impacting order management?
Everybody's talking about AI.
Everyone
Well,
is.
look, couple things. One, I'll just say really quick before we do AI, I'll just say on portability and numbering, we also have automation solutions from end to end.
Yeah.
And we really simplify that world for our customers. And we can actually provide that portability and numbering as a service. So anyone who's really kind of stuck on that complexity, we'll be happy to take that over. Now, with respect to AI, look, it has tremendous potential for our part of the industry.
Yeah.
You think about just obviously we have to develop our solutions. We have a pretty large development shop in the development area. We're starting to introduce some of those AI tools that can help us. There's obvious potential on the customer support side, and in the fallout space, in preventing fallout, automating the resolution of fallout, all in a smart way. So there's tremendous potential there. But I think that we need to do some groundwork first. We really have to get rid of manual processes. It's really hard to apply AI to the manual world. So we gotta continue to push the automation, continue to push the systems that talk to each other, because that's going to clean up the data. We got to standardize the data, like I was talking about. It's going to clean up the data, make it much easier to introduce AI effectively. And then, of course, we got to talk about the guardrails for AI. A lot of people don't think about that, but one of the major things that we care about for our customers is the safety of their data. They entrust us with their ordering data, and we have to keep that secure. And we've got a tremendous security apparatus. Oh my God, I don't even know. I'm losing my words here.
That's okay.
A security machine at TU to keep our data safe. Introducing AI into it has to be done in the right way so that we continue to, we put the right guardrails around it, keep the data safe, and then drive the improvements that everybody wants to see.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, for sure. So, John, that's all. Our time is up.
Time is up. It went so fast.
It did
Say
go
it
so
isn't
fast.
so.
I think hopefully we won't have to wait a whole nother year before we get more updates from you. But it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to.
Thank you for the time. Appreciate
chatting.
the conversation.
Yes.
Appreciate the time.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to JSA TV, coming to you today live from the floor of ITW 2025. Until next time. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we are coming to you today live from the floor of ITW 2025 here in beautiful National Harbor. I think the rain has held off slightly for the time being, but yeah, I'm very pleased to be joined today by Deborah Freitas, who's the CEO of LightSource Communications. Welcome, Deborah.
Hi, thanks so much for having me back. I love to spend some time with you guys and very, very happy to be here.
Yeah, so great to have you. As always, you're one of our favorite guests here on JSA TV.
Thank you.
So welcome back. But before we get into some of our topics today, just for any of our viewers who may not be familiar, I'm sure most are, but for any who may not be, just tell us a little bit about LightSource LSC.
Sure, I'm delighted. So LightSource was founded in 2014, so we're celebrating our 11th year together. We have Pete Impey, who's an industry veteran, who is our president and CSO. And we are a premier dark fiber provider, and we look for strategic markets across the U.S. and then we own and operate the networks there.
And I think today's a big day here. It's day one of ITW, but
Yeah.
You've already had some pretty big news, I think, come out this morning. Can you share it with our viewers?
So excited to share that.
Yes,
Thank you. We just announced this morning we have a brand new route in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have all of our engineering is complete. We're about 98% done with permitting there, and construction has started. And it's a great market for us. We're doing a 75-mile ring there around the metro area. We're going to be touching a lot of the local data centers as well as a couple hyperscalers. So that's really exciting for us. And we'll be providing AI and high power compute services.
Okay. And I think you have some new partnerships to talk about as well. Do you not? Do you want to
I do.
share that?
We recently announced that we are the premier provider, or the first provider into edge data center in Phoenix, which is one of our other routes that we're really excited about. We have Tulsa, we have Phoenix, and now Vegas. And so we're the first folks into the edge data center in Mesa, which is great. And that project is coming along really well, and we're super excited to be partnering with those guys.
Yeah, amazing. There's always great updates coming from you and your team, so we always appreciate it. And like I've mentioned, I think a couple times now, we're only on day one. This is always a very, very busy week and a busy show. Or anything you have, especially, I'm sure you'll be talking a lot about your news and whatnot, but
For sure.
But what does the week have in store for you?
Well, we have a lot of great meetings lined up. I mean, this show is such an incredible opportunity to meet with your customers and with vendors and things. So it's always exciting to be at ITW. I'm glad to be back this year. But yeah, we have, besides the new Vegas route that we're super excited about announcing, we have a couple other things that are really close. Can't just share them yet, but
Not
please
yet.
pay attention.
Okay.
They'll be coming out soon. But we're really excited about our routes that we, are working on. Like I said, Vegas, Phoenix, Tulsa, and those projects are really growing. So
Yeah.
excited about it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all this. We're happy to be here. So to be part of sharing some of your great news that's happening and some of your developments. Congratulations on
Thank
all
you.
the work that you and your team are doing.
Thank you. Well, JSA is dear to my heart, so it's always a pleasure, and I appreciate you guys for having me on. Thank you.
Feeling is mutual. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in today to JSA TV Live. Stay tuned as we continue to bring updates from our leaders across the digital infrastructure industry. Until next time. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we are coming to today live from the floor of ITW 2025. And we're talking to leaders across the digital infrastructure industry from around the world, including across the water. And I'm, on that note, pleased to introduce to you Jennifer Holmes, who's the CEO of London Internet Exchange, or Lynx. Welcome, Jennifer. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. We'll sort of jump right in today. I know a lot of our viewers are familiar with Lynx, but wanted to talk a little bit about the sort of growth of alternative network providers and how Lynx is able to act in this space.
Yeah, so over in the UK, we've been working with the alternative network providers. We call them altnets in the UK. So these are the guys that are the much smaller ISPs in the UK that are serving the hard-to-reach communities or just offering a different perspective to the larger organizations there. So we're really able to help these guys because we're a really cost-effective way of them being able to connect in one point and reach many, many networks at the same time. So instead of them having to set up lots of individual peering sessions or private interconnect sessions, they're able to connect over an internet exchange point like us. And they can reach all that content out there with one really quite cost-effective way of doing that. So we're really able to work with those guys over in the UK to make that happen.
Yeah. And I know that, in terms of internet exchanges, it's sort of the more the better, right? In a lot of ways, it's a community-driven approach. And so outside of the alternate networks, what are you seeing in terms of the space within the U.S. market?
Yeah, so over at our exchange in the States, it's called Nova, so it's in Northern Virginia, so it's just around here. So we're in a number of sites there, and we've got just over 50 members who connect there. And with the peak traffic we're seeing there at the moment is about 200 gig. So at an exchange like that, for example, we've got some of the large content players already there. So Google, Amazon, Meta, those guys are there. Yeah. So for the smaller networks in the US who are trying to reach these large content players, they can do that by joining the Nova exchange point and taking services there. And then they can reach all of that content from the Nova exchange.
And I know that, sometimes we talk, especially in this industry, about the idea of co-opetition, right? Because, we're working with people, partnering with folks and organizations that we're also competing against. And so, I think for Lynx that is a relevant situation, right? You're sometimes a tenant in a space that you're also competing with. How does that work with your model?
Yeah, that's absolutely the case, especially in our Northern Virginia exchange. We're the sort of second largest IXP in this area, but we work with the data centers who, as you said, some of them are competitors of ours, but we're a neutral, non-profit, membership-owned, so we're coming at it from a slightly different angle. That the data centers tend to cooperate with us because we're sending that good message. And we're also offering resiliency and redundancy to their customers who are already there, take services with them. We're giving them that second resilient option. So it works quite well together. It's
that makes a lot of sense. So it actually gives a benefit to what they can provide. Yeah, that's amazing. And you know what? I know we only had such a short time with you today. We're doing a sort of
super busy.
Yeah, and we're doing a bit of a speed chat with you, but we're looking forward to having more conversations in the future. I know we'll see you here again next year and probably on the road at some of the shows over the next month. But thank you so much for stopping by today and giving us a little bit of a peek inside what's happening with Lynx, especially on the U.S. market front. So
no problem. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in again to JSA TV. And we will keep coming to you today live from the floor of ITW 2025. And until next time, we'll see you then. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to JSA TV, where we're coming to you today live from the floor of ITW 2025 in beautiful National Harbor, just outside of Washington, D.C. And we are talking to leaders across our industry who are sharing news and innovations and stories about everything that's happening in digital infrastructure. And I'm pleased to be joined by Warren Rayburn, who's the Chief Operating Officer of White Label Communications. Warren, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah. So welcome back. I know you chatted with our team at JSA TV just a couple months back, but for any of our viewers who may not have heard that interview or had the opportunity to meet you yet, tell us a little bit about White Label Communications.
Sure. Yeah. So I joined the organization in January, this past January, so still relatively new myself, but I came to know the group at White Label Communications. They serviced an MSP business that we had, Comstar Technologies, which just so happened to also be a JSA client. So had the pleasure of coming to know the team a number of years ago, and this opportunity presented itself in November. So I'm thrilled to be a part of the organization and what we're building towards. White Label Communications is a VoIP platform as a service provider. So if you're familiar with, competitors of ours would be, say, a SkySwitch or a Virtue or groups of that ilk. So, but we offer most recently launched a CPaaS communications platform as a service offering, so a Twilio-like consideration. But our bread and butter for the past 15 years has been enabling our partners, wholesale, resale partners, of which there are 640 today across the country, to sell UCaaS, SIP, and CCaaS as well. So that's who we are.
And you, I believe, been on quite a growth trajectory at White Label. I mean, obviously, they've added you to the team. That's
Yes.
probably been part of that, the growth, I would imagine. And so can you tell us some of the highlights of what's been happening?
Yeah, sure. So, well, firstly, we're very, very close on executing an acquisition in the next couple of weeks to enhance and take up market our CCaaS offering. So we're very, very excited about that. For us, that's the tip of the spear on behalf of our partner community to get into the mid-market and enterprise space. Additional growth considerations were out there. That's one of the big reasons I'm here today. Expanding our reseller partner community, for example. Traditionally, we've worked with MSPs and interconnects and so on, but we've made inroads recently within the ISPs, CLEX, and ILEX space. So that's a big reason why we're here, and certainly keeping an ear to the street on all things in the M&A space at the same time as well.
Okay. Well, that's exciting news.
Yeah.
We can't wait to see that come across and talk more about that. And then I know that partnerships are also really important in general in our industry. I think the more people can work together on certain initiatives, the faster the growth can be. How does that impact your work at White Label?
Yeah, so interesting enough, we just, at our last board meeting, kind of fashioned a buy, borrow, or build strategy. So, and that's exactly how we look at every opportunity as it relates to, our service delivery objectives and the growth and expansion of our offering. We look at things from the standpoint of solution adjacencies. So again, this CCaaS piece represents a major uplift for us. The CPaaS portion of it as well takes us into the messaging arena. And, I think ultimately we could find ourselves in areas like network access, SD-WAN, SASE, and otherwise building what we hope to be is a full-service communication platform company on behalf of our reseller partners.
Amazing. So we're just day one. I mean, it's a busy week. Do you have what's sort of the rest of ITW have in store for you?
Yeah, no, great question actually. And so far, I'm really, really pleasantly surprised. I mean, the turnout's exceptional. A good varied group as well from the standpoint of the carrier community to those providing services to the carriers. My hope is just from the standpoint of having more substantive dialogue than maybe, say, some of the other channel-driven shows and otherwise.
Yeah.
A lot of decision makers here, and started out the morning with a group that we're talking to about arguably helping us get our voice offering to the masses internationally. Again, with the CCaaS opportunity, the proprietor is based in Spain, so I'd love nothing more than to see what we can do to expand our horizons and those of our reseller partners. So it's a really golden opportunity to get in front of the influencers and in the areas that, again, now with this expanded go-to-market strategy, that we're really driving our focus in.
Okay, thank you. It's been so great talking to you. I feel like we could just keep talking here. There's a lot to cover. Unfortunately, I think our time is up, and you have so many other things to get to today. So thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with us here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. And thank you for the partnership. And again, JSA has been a huge, not just for us at White Label and what we're doing together to from the standpoint of our rebrand efforts and initiatives, and otherwise the new white label that's coming together, but also from my past dealings with everybody at Comstar Technologies. So thank you for everything as well.
Yeah, thank you for your faith in us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we look forward to continued success together. And so thank you. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to JSA TV, where we continue to come to you live, sharing stories from leaders across the digital infrastructure industry here at ITW 2025. Until next time.
Welcome back to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in the digital infrastructure industry here at ITW in National Harbor. And joining me today, we have two very special guests. We have Hal Baylor, Senior Client Executive at Cortec, and Damon Fortune. He is a strategic advisor and also advisory board member at Cortec. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Bobby. Appreciate it.
Yes, it's our pleasure. And Hal, you recently just joined Cortec.
Yes.
It's an optical engineering firm. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about Cortec and your decision to join this amazing team?
Sure. Well, I was at another company for 15 and a half years. It was focused more on the not operations side of things, and had the opportunity to join Cortec. So I'm excited. By the way, I'm excited to be at ITW. It's a blast. I'm excited to meet with you guys here. This is fun. And most of all, I guess, I'm excited to be working with Cortec. It's an amazing group of seasoned senior engineers that have worked together in this company for 14 years, but they've also had a previous life working together in other companies. So they've all worked together. They've learned to work together really well, and they're a very dynamic, nimble, but very knowledgeable and effective engineering team. The really cool stuff about Cortec that I've found is that they can do it all from, I hate to use the word cradle to grave, but
soup to nuts
applies. They actually can do if it's an existing network, they can do a full network assessment. They can do a extensive review and reporting on all of that. Then they can come back in and help with the design. Sometimes there's already a design firm, but once the design firm has delivered their design, they can also tweak things because they know the field and how things actually work in the field really well. So I really love that aspect, that they have this full knowledge. And then when it comes to an OEM, they work with all the major OEMs, and they can actually reach out to the OEMs because they know senior leadership. They can find things that sometimes their clients can't find. So I could go on, but I'll stop there.
Well, it sounds like a strategic move for you, and you're joining a very well-stacked team there at Cortec. What are you seeing in the market these days as far as trends go when it comes to public-private partnerships?
I think that the space for, and we've worked a lot previously in the public sector, but now shifting more into the private sector, and again, why we're here.
Right.
Kind of introducing, but we have extensive experience. There's no difference between what we do there and what we do here. Well, the money is different. But within these environments, what we're seeing is that people are getting a lot of new technology pushed towards them, so we can help them enable that technology. A lot of AI, a lot of strict security requirements. And then also the security requirements are interesting because they end up being on the technology side, but also on the operations side. So, and tying that back into things, it's hard for a lot of companies to keep up with all these technologies, all these changes, and that goes for operations too. So with our white glove NOC service, which is network operations as a service, service providers can use that for private networks that they build, but that are not tied to their environment. And that makes that a really effective service that they don't have the resources to follow up with.
Yeah. And why don't we switch over to Damon and talk a little bit more about why Cortec is the best kept secret?
So, interesting question. Cortec is really a company that has been focused on not only the public sector, but also the private sector as well. And we've done a number of engagements across both sectors because we have the expertise on both the legacy service provider side, but also the enterprise side. So I think that is a very unique set of skills that Cortec brings to the table, and we've been able to capitalize on that across both sectors.
Yeah. And how about if there's one bit of optical engineering advice you'd offer people today? What would it be?
So optical networks are complex, and a trusted partner is always great to have. There is a breadth and depth that Cortec brings to the table that we collectively believe is a differentiator to help our customers grow their networks reliably, and we are committed to that goal.
Yeah. Is there anything either of you would like to add today?
I would just like to mirror that and say that from my experience being an outsider, it was always obvious and apparent when I worked. I was a vendor to Cortec in their previous company, and I always knew that they were. I didn't have to ask them the simple questions. They already knew what they were doing. So it's a trusted partner that really can do the whole thing and do it well. And I had the experience with lots of different companies that didn't do it well. And we run up against companies that bring implementations to us, and we have to advise them and guide them because they go off on tangents that they don't expect. When you build networks, even when you do small projects, things can go awry, and this team can pull things together and make it all work. So they're excellent.
So, Damon, where can viewers go if they want to learn more about Cortec?
So, Cortec.com.
And it's KOR-TEK.
The best kept secret, right?
Well kept secret. We're trying to unsecret.
Exactly.
Well, go to Cortec.com to find out more. Hal, Damon, such a pleasure to have you guys here today in National Harbor at ITW, the largest ITW to date. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode of JSA TV live from ITW in National Harbor. Stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking. Welcome back to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in the digital infrastructure industry, live from ITW in National Harbor. And joining me today is Mike Severt. He is the president of South Reach Networks. Mike, welcome.
Thanks for having us. It's always a pleasure to be here with JSA TV, catching up again.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure having you. I think we last spoke at Metro Connect when you shared some exciting news about the expansion of high count fiber infrastructure across Florida. What news or what other new developments do you have today?
Sure. Yeah, so a few months ago, we were excited to announce the continuation of just building out more digital infrastructure, fiber networks throughout Florida. We support a very large ecosystem today with over 370 miles of fiber, all underground from Jacksonville to Miami, locally through Boca, and local markets. So our customer base is carrier, subsea, international, content, cloud, and a lot of the fiber to the home kind of market. So with that, we're building an additional 50 plus miles, all new routes for diversity, redundancy through multiple data centers to support the growth in Florida, but also some of the new cables that are landing. So we're excited about that, and should be live in the next probably 6 to 7 months.
Yeah, and we're also hearing so much more about your continuation of the growth of your fiber footprint. Is there any recent milestones or any previews about what's on the horizon?
Sure. It's just a continuation of supporting our current customers, the growth that they have and the drivers. So some new routes being planned, as I mentioned, Boca, Miami, diversity into Hollywood, in and out of some of the new cable landings to support that growth, the data center growth. A few that I can't talk about just yet that'll be announced shortly. In addition to the dark fiber, we also own and operate 5 edge co-location facilities throughout Florida.
Okay.
And we also provide a managed service network, so 100, 400 gig platform. So we're excited about the continuation of growth. Florida, as everyone knows, has been a massively growing market. And with expansions into Miami all the way up to Atlanta, we're excited to continue to grow and support our customers, new and existing.
Yeah. Let's dive a little bit deeper into subsea.
Yep.
We know that South Reach Networks is actively enhancing infrastructure to support subsea connectivity along the Florida East Coast, which is my favorite coast of Florida. Can you tell us a little bit more about upcoming cable landing station projects that you have in store?
Sure. So our network today is the whole, southeast, northeast section of Florida, Jax to Miami. And for history of the Florida markets, many subsea legacy cables land in Florida, Jacksonville, all the way down through Miami. And through recent press and recent announcements, there's been many cables that are announced that are landing and to be landed in Florida coming into the East Coast. So we support that community today, that vertical, that infrastructure. And with some of the cables that are landing, some we can talk about, some we can't. They're current clients of ours that we support. We're excited for the growth of not only the new cables, current customers that are buying from us. We have not only some of the lowest latency routes in the market, but some of the most direct, buried, and protected rights of way for the fiber. So we feel our network is in pole position to support the existing subsea and some of the new cables that are landing.
Yeah, such exciting growth down there in Florida. Is there anything else you want to add today?
No, just in general, we're excited about Florida over the course of what's been happening for 20 plus years and in the past 5 plus years with the growth of Florida in general, just from population, but from business, connectivity, data center, and subsea. And so we're continuing to support that ecosystem and the digital infrastructure around all that, and looking to continue to support the customers and the growth. And we don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely not slowing down anytime soon. Where can viewers go if they want to learn more?
South Reach Networks website, LinkedIn. You can always get in touch with us directly through our marketing with JSA as well. So easy to find.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for joining us for another episode of JSA TV here at ITW in National Harbor. And viewers, thanks for tuning in. Stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking.
Thank you.
Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in the digital infrastructure space. I'm Buffy Harakitis of JSA, and joining me today is Lu Hong, CEO of Larus Limited. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, our pleasure. And we know Larus Limited is very closely connected to the Larus Foundation, which focuses on a variety of initiatives. Why don't you tell viewers a little bit more about the foundation and the initiatives that it supports?
Yeah, so Larus Foundation spent most of its budget to bring young people into understanding the infrastructure world and the numbering system, the IP address business we are doing, and help educate the next generation about how internet functions. And we've been doing this for the past decade, and we bring thousands of students to different internet governance related events. And we hope we contribute our part to make the internet as it is today. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. It sounds like we should get you on our Data Movers podcast, which focuses on empowering the next generation. But back to Larus Limited, you made some great strides recently. You had some great news developments. Why don't you share with viewers some of those accomplishments?
Yeah, so Larus recently has released our new trading platform for IPv4 addresses, and now we can fully automate allocation of IP addresses from end to end. All customer can get their IPv4 address in 24 hours. It never happened before; it's first time, and it's become it's the easiest way ever. That's all. Thank you.
You're welcome. And AI, of course, is still the hot topic across our industry, especially here at ITW. Key driver of innovation. How is Larus incorporating AI into its operations and beyond?
So because we manage the largest IPv4 addresses on the planet Earth, and we support across over 100 countries, telecom operators. So we have a large data of IP address usage, the abuse data. So we use large language model to process those abuse data to train our AIs to recognize and identify threats across thousands of networks globally. It's the biggest on Earth at this moment for the collection of abuse data on the internet. And AI helps dramatically. We couldn't do it without AI because the amount of data involved.
Right. Yeah. I mean, AI is definitely, like I said, such a hot topic here at ITW, and glad to see that you're using it to help in your business as well. So if viewers are interested in learning more about the Larus Foundation or Larus Limited, where can they go?
Well, come to larus.net, our website, and or reach out to us, or just Google our name or Google IPv4. We're everywhere.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Lu Hong, for joining us today on JSA TV, live from ITW. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode. Stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking. Welcome back to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in the digital infrastructure industry. I'm Buffy Harakitis of JSA, and joining me today is Andre Van Zale.
Perfect.
He is the new CRO, Chief Revenue Officer at DartPoints. Andre, welcome.
Thank you, Buffy. Nice to be here.
Yes, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And first, congratulations on your new role with DartPoints. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what drew you to DartPoints and what's so exciting about leading such a great company?
Yeah, thanks, Buffy. I think there's probably two things that really got my attention with DartPoints. I think first and foremost, great companies are built with people. And when I got to meet and got to know Scott Willis, our CEO, in the early days, something really stuck out for me was the culture and just the general respect everybody had for each other. And I instantly knew that I needed to be a part of that DNA. And I think the other thing that I really got my attention was just the very strategic focus of going after what we refer to as tier 2 markets. I've seen this movie before with my previous life, and the tier 2 market is poised for growth.
It is.
And yeah, those are two main things why.
Yeah. It's interesting when you say the tier 2 market. I mean, I think that definitely, especially, with all this news out there about maybe some of the bigger players pulling back, it's like the enterprise and the tier 2 market, two markets are hotter than ever. Would you say?
Absolutely. That got my attention. There's a chasm opening up in this area right now, and DartPoints is poised to capture that opportunity.
Especially with you at the helm, right?
Absolutely.
So we heard recently some big news coming out of DartPoints. Can you share some of that recapitalization with Nova and how that is planned for future growth?
Yeah, I mean, what an exciting time to be for DartPoints. 45 days in, and I get to be part of this next phase. $250 million sounds like a lot of money, and we're going to be putting that to work right away. And there's a few things where we're going to, implement it. Number one, we want to own and operate our infrastructure. We want to acquire our real estate. That's really important for our future growth and just to take back control of those data centers. Secondly, we're going to be expanding a lot of our existing locations by adding additional capacity and really just building out, I guess the term is AI-ready data centers, ensuring that we have the ability, or rather for our clients to have the ability to grow with us with the new AI demands. So building out new locations as well as acquiring some brownfield sites. So lots of opportunity, lots of ways to spend that money.
Well, you mentioned the A word, AI,
The A word.
a little bit there. Why don't you talk a little bit more about how DartPoints is positioned to meet these changing demands when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of trends. I think there's a lot of big trigger words out there, AI, high density. Really right now, I think there's a lot of unknown in the industry of how to get ready for your client's potential AI data center loads, high density loads. And we're really going to take the stance of going with more of a hybrid approach by one, building data center halls that are AI ready. We can manipulate our environments to either go with direct-to-chip cooling or attach some rear door heat exchangers to manage these higher density workloads. So we're going to remain nimble in this process, but also just ensure we are future-proof for whatever client demands coming down the line.
Yeah, exciting times over there with DartPoints, and congratulations again on your new role. 45 days in and already slaying it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can viewers go if they want to learn more?
Please come to our website, dartpoints.com, or you can also follow us on LinkedIn.
All right, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode of JSA TV from ITW 2025 in National Harbor. Stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking. Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in the digital infrastructure industry. I'm Buffy Harakitis, EVP at JSA, and joining me today is John Edward Baxter. He is the VP of Alaska Communications. John, welcome.
Thank you, Buffy. I appreciate you having me here.
So all the way from Alaska?
I'm from Central Oregon, but yes, Alaska. Yeah.
We don't get many opportunities to interview people from Alaska Communications, so it's such an honor and a pleasure to have you here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
And we've been talking a little bit before we went on camera today about the need, for more communications across Alaska and the demand for reliable broadband, especially in regions such as Alaska. Why don't you talk about some of the unique challenges of delivering high-speed, low-latency communications across that region?
Absolutely. Like I said, I appreciate your time. One of the biggest challenges is simply geography. I mean, Alaska is a big place. If you cut Alaska in half, Texas becomes the third biggest state in the nation. That's how big Alaska is. The majority of the population's in Anchorage, Juneau, Kenai, Fairbanks, and Homer. Those are served very well by existing fiber networks. But you start getting out into the remote villages, and I mean in remote. I mean, some of these you can only fly to. Some of them, it's a very much a challenge to get to. So in the urban areas like Anchorage, it's served by 4 subsea cables down to the lower 48 and a cable through Canada. So those are very well served. But you get out into the other areas, and that middle mile is incredibly important. Now, there's a lot of programs to provide fiber to the home in the villages, but it's the middle mile, getting it back to where they can actually access the internet,
right, that
is truly a challenge. And I don't have to explore all different opportunities, whether it's geo satellite, LEO satellite, microwave, or government grants to build fiber. I mean, we are building fiber down the Yukon River. It's called the Alaska Fiber Optic Project. Literally putting fiber in the Yukon River to serve villages along there and bring high-speed internet to the residents there. In the urban areas, it's still not as easy as you would think.
Right.
So, building fiber to the home in a place like Anchorage, you'd think it'd be really easy, but no, it's costly. It's a very CapEx driven item. So we're using other things. We're looking at items like Tirana, doing fixed wireless access, so that we can use existing infrastructure fiber, but extend that to small businesses, extend it to consumers at a reasonable cost, and provide them the access that they need to be productive.
Sounds transformative in Alaska, what you guys are doing for sure.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at the difference. I started in Alaska 2001.
Okay.
Prior to 2007, 2008 timeframe, there was one cable serving Alaska, and there were 9 DS3s on that cable. People in Alaska said, how will we ever use 9 DS3s? Okay? We now have 4 terabit cables to serve Alaska, and we're selling along. We sell 10G, 100G circuits. So the amount of transformation that's happened over the years is truly amazing.
It truly is, the transformation, the growth there. And here at ITW, we've been talking a lot about partnerships in the telecom industry as a whole. It's always a key theme. So why don't you share some collaborations or partnerships that Alaska Communications has been forging to help bridge this digital divide and help continue the growth in Alaska?
Okay, well, thank you. So I mentioned the Alaska Fiber Optic Project. That is a government grant to bring fiber to the home to the villages along the Yukon River. Alaska Communications could not have done that alone. So we partnered with various organizations in Alaska, native corporations, and other ones to get those grants and to help us make sure that we are providing what the villages actually need. It doesn't matter what somebody sitting in Anchorage thinks they need.
Right.
It's really important what they need. Then as we look going further into the future, there's companies like Alaska Power and Cordova Moldova Telecom Association, and others that are using grants to build fiber infrastructure undersea in southeast Alaska. So Juneau, although it's the state capital, it's relatively isolated. And so what's being built now is other cables that are going to connect along the coast from Seattle all the way up, eventually get into Anchorage. So working with those other local exchange carriers, we're one of them, we're an ILEC, just to make sure that as they're building, we're looking at how do we serve our areas along the way, and also work with them to give them a redundant path, so that it's not just a matter of, hey, great, Port Ovitel brings fiber to a community, but if there's a subsea fiber cut, it's a minimum of 10 days that repair. So working with them to make sure that there is a redundant path really makes it so that not only do the users have the capacity, they keep the capacity.
But yeah, it's a little bit of partnership, a little bit of co-opetition there.
So just so you know, I'm on the carrier federal side. My team's role is to sell to other carriers. Those other carriers are also our competition. They're also our suppliers.
Right.
So it's a very, very unique and fun place to be.
Yeah, it sounds it for sure, and much needed in order to achieve some of these strategic goals that have been put into place. Now, cybersecurity, of course, is always a concern in the communications landscape, but now more than ever for sure. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you are enhancing your network to prevent some of these, very damaging cyber attacks?
So, of course, the first layer is physical. How do you make sure that you are protected at a physical level? So a lot of our facilities are deemed critical infrastructure. So we have government comes, looks at them, gives us advice, make sure that we have the proper generators, make sure that we have the ability to refuel those generators in an event. But that's not really what you're talking about. What you're talking about is somebody on the other side of the world using the internet to get into our network and disrupt things. Constantly evolving threat. So we have a department that is purely focused on that. How do you keep our network safe? Not only within our own, but also extending that out to our customers. How do we make sure that a customer I serve, by providing them upstream internet that they provide to their customers, is protected from a denial of service attack? It's a constant challenge. Making sure we look at like the CMMC rules for the federal government, and constant education, regardless of the industry stats on phishing. It's just amazing how many people will click on a link just because it looks real. And we have an ongoing program for that, just to make sure that our people don't do it, to the point of we're making the test phishing tests that we run on our employees, they're better than anything we see in the industry. So we're trying to make sure that
ethical hacking.
Ethical hacking. It's all internal. Just making sure that people don't do it. And if we have repeat offenders who accidentally click on that, they get additional training. And their manager gets additional training.
I mean, education is key in this battle against these cyber criminals that's continuously evolving and growing and getting more sophisticated by the minute.
And going out to our customers, we have a managed IT group that will do trainings for our customers on those exact types of things. Hey, these are things you should look for. These are things that make it odd. I hate to steal what TSA does, but in the airports, if you see something, say something.
Right.
Same idea. If it seems odd, don't click it.
Don't click it. If it seems odd, don't click it. So is there anything else that you wanted to add today?
I really just thank you for the time, and I would suggest that everybody, when they get a chance, visit Alaska. It is truly worth it, and it's a place you'll never forget.
Yeah, it is on my bucket list, and probably of those many viewers tuning in at home, Our first time having Alaska Communications here on JSA TV. Such an honor and a privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode of JSA TV from ITW 2025 in National Harbor. Stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking. Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in the digital infrastructure space. I'm Buffy Harakitis of JSA, and joining me today is Mike DeVito. He is the Chief Commercial Officer for Valor C3 Data Centers. Mike, welcome.
Buffy, always great to be with you and the JSA team and on such an exciting day. So thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely. Always a pleasure, Mike, to have you and anyone from the Valor team here on JSA TV. But first things first, congratulations are in order because big news just dropped today. Valor C3 just announced the groundbreaking on a new data center in Boise, Idaho. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about it?
Thanks, Buffy. Yeah, today is an exciting day. We are announcing, as Buffy mentioned, our second build in the very vibrant and fast-growing Boise market. We're very excited about this. It's site planned for 10 megawatts. We'll begin construction actually on Monday, so there'll be a fence around and lots of activity, lots of playing in the dirt, as they call it. That'll be our first 5 megawatt tranche that will be starting on Monday. Our second 5 megawatt tranche, which will be air gapped from the first building. We'll do that when demand drives that, but we're really excited about it. We think Boise is a great market, as you mentioned. It's a vibrant market with a lot of different enterprises. And when completed, our new campus, together with our current build, is going to give us a total of 12 megawatts in this great market that serves a number of enterprises from tech to healthcare, et cetera. So we think it's a great market for us to be in. We're super excited about it, as you can tell. And we are going to tether the two facilities together via fiber to give our clients, the utmost in optionality. So super excited about it. Come on up Monday and watch us tilt up. Watch us start playing in the dirt. Tilt up comes later. So
yeah, well, congratulations again. I mean, Boise is definitely an emerging market. Great place for you guys to be. And one thing that I know Valor says over and over again is that you go where your clients go, where they need you most. So it's great to see that you're breaking ground on Monday. One thing that I read in the press release today is that you're calling it Idaho's most modern data center, most modern enterprise data center. Why don't you tell viewers a little bit more about that?
And that's a great distinction, by the way, because Idaho already boasts some very, very modern, massive facilities. But in this particular case, from an enterprise perspective, we're super proud of it because of the design. It's a modular design. It's a 5 to make 4 design built to the maximum of concurrent maintainability. We're really excited about the water-cooled capabilities that we have on the floor and the distribution possibilities therein, really to support densities and increased densities we're seeing from our clients. As you know, there's some limitations with physics on air cooling. We top out. This is going to give us a capability to go beyond. And as the clients' densities continue to grow, to serve that vibrant market, and also, frankly, potentially be an inbound destination for other workloads outside of the Boise market. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah. And if viewers, you're interested in learning more about this most modern enterprise data center, you can visit valorc3.com to get more on that press release and that announcement. And I know Valor C3 is definitely on the move, looking to expand, looking to grow. So many changes and opportunities there. Why don't you tell viewers what markets you're strategically targeting?
Thanks, Buffy. We'll continue our focus on, let's say, developing tier 2 markets where we feel either we have a client-led entry into that market, right? We'll go where our clients want us to go, probably in a greenfield kind of model, or B, if the market inherently we feel is, let's say, underserved with, let's say, growing absorption rates, but potentially muted supply. We'd love to go into that market either on a greenfield or even on a brownfield basis. We have a healthy development funnel. We're always looking at opportunities. So we'll keep our focus very much in those developing, emerging tier 2 markets. You won't see us in Ashburn or Chicago or Dallas. Lots of amazing providers in those markets. We like working locally for a lot of reasons, and our clients seem to like it as well. So we'll keep our focus there.
Yeah, it's a very strategic focus, especially with so many of these markets continuing to grow and expand.
And I think you'll see us continue in our sweet spot of 5 to 40 megawatts, right? That'll be our focus, very much on mid-market enterprises with some opportunities for bigger scale projects, notably at the edge for web scalers or hyperscalers. But we love working in the middle markets, and we love working with all of our clients, but we'll stay in that 5 to 40 megawatt range.
Yeah. And if there's anything, viewers want to learn, anything else that you want to talk about today?
Just, want to thank our amazing clients. They've been with us on this journey now these last, 2.5 years. We're thrilled to have a great investor in CVC Diff who are enabling us, and of course, great clients. And it's a great journey, great team, amazing colleagues, and we're looking forward to a lot of growth. And frankly, we're thrilled to work in a sector that has so much upside to it. So it's really a blessing. So we're thrilled by it.
So much about the growth in the industry here today at ITW, and just over and over again since the beginning of this year, years. that this industry just continues to grow and explode. So thank you so much, Mike, for joining us today here on JSA TV.
Thank you, Buffy, and thanks as always to the JSA team. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode of JSA TV, live from ITW 2025. Stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking. Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in digital infrastructure. I'm Buffy Harakitis of JSA, and joining me today is Patton Lockridge. He is the CCO of Big Fiber. Patton, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome back. Yeah, it's been a while since we chatted on JSA TV together. For viewers that don't know, why don't you tell them a little bit more about Big Fiber and what the company does?
Sure. Big Fiber, formerly known as Bandwidth IG. We are a pure play dark fiber infrastructure provider. So we build networks, dark fiber networks, exclusively between data centers. So that's it. We're in 3 markets today, likely to go to a few others. We stay very busy in Atlanta, Georgia, in the greater Atlanta area, the San Francisco Bay Area, and the Hillsborough, Portland area.
Well, you gave a little bit of a hint there. Formerly Bandwidth IG.
That's right.
So there was some big news just recently.
That's right.
Where you refreshed the brand from Bandwidth IG to Big Fiber. So tell us a little bit more about that big news.
Well, it was a decision we made. It was an easy decision because really that's what our customers call us. Bandwidth IG, BIG, Big. When we started hearing some of our largest partners refer to us as Big, not only did that kind of help us with this decision, but it really exemplifies like that's what we do. We build big solutions that really otherwise aren't in the marketplace. Like I said, we're a pure play dark fiber infrastructure provider. We don't do managed services or any kind of lit solutions. So our customers come to us and say, I need a high bandwidth solution that really doesn't exist in the markets that we're in. It's bigger than anything that exists. Our customers were telling us to go big, so we decided to go big.
Go big or go home,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah, I love it. I love the name, Big Fiber. And last time we caught up earlier this year, you had announced the big dark fiber announcement in the
It's
Atlanta
easy to throw
area.
the pun in there over and over and over again.
Definitely. So how's that coming along, and give some updates on that project in Atlanta?
So Atlanta is our fastest growing market, and it caught us a little by surprise, frankly. We knew it was going to be a great market when we entered the market 6 years ago. Started off at a reasonable pace for the first 3 or 4 years in business. And then just sort of the stars aligned with a lot of new data center development. And so whether it was just the power availability, the land availability, the demand from customers with a lot of the long haul networks terminating into Atlanta, we kicked off a very large 170 mile route expansion supporting hyperscale data centers, third-party data centers, expansions in the carrier hotels. So we've basically just seen an overall explosion in data center deployments and developments in Atlanta, and the market really didn't have the fiber infrastructure to support it. If you're going to have all those data centers and all those compute centers develop that quickly, the fiber infrastructure has to be there as well, and it really wasn't. It's not to say there wasn't fiber in Atlanta or isn't existing fiber in Atlanta, but it really wasn't purpose-built for express routes between data centers that's highly scalable with a lot of the new AI applications going into data centers. So something new needed to come to the market. We were there already, building the way we build, which is large duct packages, high count fiber, 100% underground. And so when the opportunity arose to say, hey, we being our customers are doing a lot bigger developments outside of the city, we need to bring what you've done here in Atlanta proper out to our campuses. And then the infill between those campuses and the city began to happen. And like I said, it was kind of one of those stars sort of aligned in Atlanta. And we were glad we were there to support our customers as they grow.
Yeah, a lot of growth there in the
For sure.
Atlanta market for
It really
sure.
is, yeah.
And tell us what else is in store for Big. Any other big news coming up that we should stay tuned for?
Well, I mean, we always point towards the success we've had in the San Francisco Bay Area. That was sort of Atlanta a few years ago, right? Where there's clearly a lot of data center development. The fiber options were really struggling. It was either old fiber, acquired fiber, aerial fiber, wasn't really purpose-built for those applications. So we did that project years ago. It's complete. So we've got end-to-end underground fiber from South San Francisco, the actual city of San Francisco, all the way down to San Jose, connecting 60-plus data centers. And it's all brand new infrastructure that's been created just by us in the last 3 or 4 years. We completed a subsea bay crossing, the first of its kind in 20 years. It traverses the bay floor, so it's not in a tunnel or on a bridge. It literally goes to the east side of the bay, the west side of the bay. And we laid that cable and completed it last fall. So it's nice to see that in place and adding a lot of value to the market. What else? Big news. I don't know how much I can say, but you could expect to see us emerge in other markets where the same challenge exists. A lot of growth in the data center community. A really a big kind of internet ecosystem exchange exists in these markets that we're considering or are already entering, and they need a big solution.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll be teasing that a little bit, but we won't make any formal announcements for a little while.
So stay tuned for some big news coming from Big Fiber. Congratulations, Patton, on the refresh of the brand.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's looking great. For viewers that want to see or learn more, can you tell them where to go?
Go to www.bigfiber.com. We had to change that, so I had to get used to saying it.
Yeah, everything we're doing big today.
So yeah, bigfiber.com has a lot of information about our existing networks, where we're growing, and kind of what makes our network different. So, and of course, reach out to me if you need anything.
Yeah, thank you so much, Patton, for joining us for another episode of JSA TV, live here at ITW 2025 in National Harbor. Stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking.
And go big.
Go big.